Okay, can everybody see the screen? How about that? Maybe we'll start right there with that. Does that seem okay?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, folks. My name again is Julie Evans. I'm the CEO of Project Tomorrow. What I'm going to do is I think I'm going to turn off my video here for just a moment. If I can do that. I don't know if I can do that once I've already started the show. So I guess you're stuck with me as like a little head in the corner. That's okay. We can still do that. So once again, our job here today is to talk about Speak Up Participation. We're calling this Speak Up Participation 101, an introduction for school and district leaders. It's wonderful to have all of you here today. I'm going to be sharing several different types of information with you today. First off, we're going to talk a little bit about Project Tomorrow so that you have an understanding about our organization. And then we'll also talk about the Speak Up Research Project. So I'll give you kind of the ins and outs of the Speak Up Research Project. And then what I've put together for you, and I think this is going to be really special, is a sampling of some of the data that schools and districts tell us that they use all the time to impact their policies, their programs, their funding, their community engagement. So this is a sampling of Speak Up data to give you kind of a taste of what you would be able to learn from participating in the Speak Up Research Project. Then we'll get down into the nitty-gritty. We'll talk about the process for having your school and district be part of Speak Up 2018. And then we've also left some time for your questions, your comments, your thoughts. Tried to be very comprehensive in today's webinar to cover everything that folks have asked us in the past, but no problems. If you have a question, you can go ahead and put it in the chat while I'm talking, or you can wait till the end and we can address it that way. In the meantime, Amber Taylor, our Director of Communications and Collaboration, will be watching the chat and looking for your questions. Okay, so to get started, a little bit about Project Tomorrow. We are an education nonprofit group. We've been working with K-12 education since 1996, started in being focused in on STEAM education and continue to be focused in on STEAM education. We believe that the programs and the research focus that we have, particularly around the use of digital tools, is really a great way for students to be well prepared for success in college and career. We are best well known for the Speak Up Research Project on digital learning, which is a unique opportunity for schools and districts to receive feedback from their K-12 stakeholders about their thoughts on digital learning, the state of education today, school climate issues, a wide range of different topics that we're going to talk about. It's also, in addition to a service that we provide to schools and districts, it's also a way for us to report on the authentic feedback of nationally aggregated data to inform policies and programs. So a little bit more about Speak Up itself, so that you can understand what the context is for the rest of our conversation. Speak Up is an annual research project that we started in 2003. In 2003, which seems like a long time ago, folks, doesn't it? It was, there was a lot of interest in digital learning and the use of technology in the classroom. But we were finding at that point that schools and districts were struggling a little bit to understand what the different viewpoints or perspectives were of their stakeholders. In particular, what students were doing using technology and what their aspirations were for using technology more successfully. And so we started Speak Up with the idea of infusing these different stakeholder voices into local decisions. But we made a couple decisions in 2003 that we have held true to ever since. One is that all of the surveys are facilitated through schools and districts. So we don't have a random student here or there, a random teacher, a random parent that takes the survey. In fact, schools and districts register to participate in Speak Up, and then all of the data that we collect is tagged to a school, to a district, conceptually to a county or an education service center, to a state, And so that gives us the opportunity not just to collect data on your behalf, but actually to give you back all of that locally collected data. So what we do is we design a suite of online surveys that you can use to collect feedback from your different stakeholders. We'll talk about all those audiences in a moment. We then facilitate the entire process for you. And once again, this is a 100% free service that we provide to schools and districts. Excuse me. And then at the end of the survey period, we give back to you your summary data from all of your audiences that participate in Speak Up. We make these surveys available, again, at no charge to any K-12 school or district that would like to use them to hear from their stakeholders. Once again, as I said before, we take the nationally aggregated data and share that with members of Congress, the U.S. Department of Education, many state departments of education, as well as other local policymaker groups to inform their programs and their initiatives. So the different audiences that we are providing surveys for are these that you're looking at right now. We have surveys available for K-12 students. Those are age appropriate, reading level appropriate. For elementary students, we have the opportunity for it to be a group survey as well as an individual survey. By group survey, what I mean is that the teacher or librarian or media specialist or tech coordinator or volunteer ask the questions of the students. The students raise their hand to indicate their responses, and then that aggregated class data is input through the online survey process. So we have that group survey available for kindergarten students through fifth graders, or we also have individual surveys that once again are reading level appropriate for those age groups. Grades 6, 7, and 8, and 9, 10, 11, 12 are all individual surveys, so the students take those individually. We also have surveys available for teachers, librarians and media specialists, parents, and we have that parent survey available in English and Spanish, and also a group format, same thing as I mentioned for the elementary students, school site administrators, principals, assistant principals, district administrators, all the different flavors from your superintendent down through your directors, assistant superintendents, associate superintendents, technology leaders at the school site level as well as at the district level, and also community members. And community members could be folks that are in your community who are homeowners, who are civic leaders, who might be school board members, who might also be parents whose children have already graduated out of your schools or maybe haven't gotten to your schools yet. So there's a wide range of different folks that could take the community member survey. The types of questions that are on the Speak Up survey are predominantly about the role of digital learning in education today. So we ask questions about the use of technology. We also ask questions, though, that are specific to different audiences. So we ask, for example, superintendents about their priorities. What wakes them up in the middle of the night is the way that we phrase it. We ask students about their interest in different types of STEAM careers and how they want to explore those careers. We ask teachers their wish list for professional development, professional learning. We also ask all of the stakeholders to talk to us about the valuation of different types of digital learning initiatives. And those might involve mobile learning, the use of digital content, maybe new classroom models, new ways of learning. We ask all the respondents also to help us design the ultimate school. And this is one of my favorite questions. So by asking that question of all the different stakeholders, it provides you with the opportunity not only to hear just from teachers or from parents or from your students, but to see how those answers correspond and align with each other. Hopefully they align with each other. Since we've started Speak Up in 2003, over 5.4 million K-12 stakeholders have submitted a Speak Up survey, making the Speak Up project the largest collection of authentic feedback, particularly from students, about digital learning. Now, staying on this trend about the types of questions that we ask, and we spend all year long putting together our questions for the Speak Up survey. We have a philosophy here at Project Tomorrow that we're not going to ask questions just to ask questions. We actually have a strategy involved in asking those questions because we think that The process of thinking through the questions ends up with providing you with the most relevant and important information that you can collect from your stakeholders. So we ask questions across what we call 3 vectors. Activities, what are you doing? Attitudes, how do you value those learning experiences using technology? And then aspirations, what's on your wish list? What's your dream school? So let me give you a couple examples of these different types of questions that we ask. So activities questions are along these lines. So how are you using mobile devices for learning? That's a question we ask students. How often do you use video in your classroom? That's a question that we ask teachers. What's your home internet status? We ask that of students as well as parents. The activities questions are ones that are probably pretty common to you. Most other surveys or other data collection efforts focus in just on activities. What are you doing? How much? How often? When? Those type of questions. We take this process 2 steps further. We ask about attitudes, as I mentioned, how folks value those learning experiences, and then also the aspirations, their wish lists. So along attitudes, those questions are around the idea of what are the benefits of digital learning for you? We ask that question of the students. We also ask that question of parents regarding their child's use of technology. What determines quality in the digital content that they're using? That's a really important question that we ask principals and teachers, and look at the characteristics that they say define high quality digital content. We ask parents about their concerns about their child's technology use. And in terms of aspirations, I already mentioned 2 of them earlier. What's on your wish list for professional development this year, as well as how would you envision the dream school? Another question that we ask is, what is the best way for your child to learn college and career-ready skills? We believe at Project Tomorrow that it's the triangulation of activities, attitudes, and aspirations that leads you to actionable knowledge. Folks, we all can put up a survey, and I know that many of you do this already, to ask questions of your stakeholders. It's about the thoughtfulness of those questions and how that data can lead you to actionable knowledge that can impact the work that you're doing in the schools and districts. Is that where we spend the most amount of time making sure that these questions are not just interesting questions, but they're important questions to inform your efforts. Now, I mentioned before that we give back to you all of the locally collected data from the surveys. This is also something that's really unique about the Speak Up project. We look at Speak Up as a service that we provide to schools and districts. We facilitate this process for you to make it easy, to also make it efficient, and to also make sure that we are not leveraging any of your instructional dollars to pay for a survey or to pay for a company to do a survey for you. So what we give back to you is all of your local data, not just a sampling, not just a snapshot. Every question, every response, you will get the data as to what percentage of your participants chose those different responses. We also do it in a comparative standpoint. So if you're joining us today from a school district and you're thinking about participating in Speak Up with us, please know that you will get a set of different reports from us. District level reports that aggregate all of the data that has been collected, and then school level comparative reports as well. On those reports, we also have the opportunity to give you comparative county data or service center data, if that's appropriate, state level data, and then also the national data. Many folks tell us that one of the most valuable aspects of Speak Up is not just looking at their own local data, but also having the opportunity to have that comparative perspective. So how does my school district compare to other school districts in our state? How does my school district compare to school districts all across the country? In addition to giving you back that data in an online report that can be downloaded, and then you can use that data any way that you want, we also provide you with a wide range of different types of templates. Templates for infographics, templates for PowerPoints, access to our national reports, and some of our other data assets. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. So the different ways that schools and districts tell us that they use their Speak Up data is something that I also thought might be interesting for you. These are the 5 predominant ways that school districts tell us the Speak Up data is impacting their plans and processes going forward. They use it to inform teacher professional development. They use it to engage their community, particularly in sharing some of the data out with their community. They use it for decision making about different types of programs or initiatives. In some cases, that's, should we start up a new program? Should we think about bringing blended learning into our schools or flipped learning? Should we think about a one-to-one mobile device program? Folks also use it to evaluate outcomes. So maybe they have already initiated a one-to-one mobile program, and they're interested to see if students are using those devices in the ways that they envisioned. And so they want to get that sort of feedback data. And then the last way is that many schools and districts that participate with us use their Speak Up data to develop additional revenue. That might be to use the Speak Up data in grant applications. It could also be, and we have seen this all across the country, where folks have used their Speak Up data to go out into their community to build consensus around a bond measure, a parcel tax, some type of new streams of funding to support schools, particularly around the use of technology. In addition to working with so many schools and districts all across the country, we are so honored to have many of these different education associations in our corner, helping us support the Speak Up surveys as well. So as you look over this list, many of these different organizations might be organizations that you belong to or that you're familiar with. So here's kind of my synopsis of this part of our program so far today, and that's about why the Speak Up project is an important and valuable service for districts. In the work that we have been doing over the last 15 years, we totally understand and appreciate how important it is to bring all the diverse perspectives of your stakeholders into your decision making, into your conversations, into your discussions about the future of education. Our communities are becoming more and more diverse, particularly in terms of their perspective or their insights about the role of technology. And so first step is to understand what those different perspectives are. Speak Up can help you do that. We also know that school leaders are facing many new demands and challenges. And one of those is the need for timely information to inform your programs, your policies, whatever it is that you're working on. You'll see as we get into the conversation about the Speak Up timeline, how timely we can provide you with information. We also believe that it is increasingly important for the leaders in our schools and districts to have new types of leadership capacities, particularly around how to effectively use stakeholder feedback, the views of their key stakeholders. And so Speak Up is also dedicated to helping school districts and schools develop that sort of leadership capacity. We also believe, as I mentioned before, that your precious education fund should be focused 100% on educational outcomes. And that is why we are so pleased to be able to provide the Speak Up project as a totally free, no-cost service to schools and districts. As I mentioned, this is a service that we provide as a nonprofit. And then the final one I think is really interesting. Increasingly what we're finding is that how schools and districts are using technology to inform their plans and to transform their educational experience for their students is really about so much more than the technology. It's really about the educational experience overall. So to that point, one of the other things that we have seen over the last couple of years is that the combination of all those diverse perspectives, the new demands and challenges, and this idea around education transformation creates a situation where sometimes from an education leadership standpoint, we might be in this situation, such as this quote from Suzanne Collins, the author of Hunger Games and Mockingjay. This particular quote is from Mockingjay. She says, knowing it and seeing it are two different things. Quite often, as we look at the use of technology in our schools today, we may think we are seeing something that may be not may not be what our stakeholders are seeing. We may think we know what we're seeing, but in fact, it may be very different from a different perspective. So it may be a little bit like this image. Some of us looking at this image may see a very strong looking face with a high forehead, deep set eyes, almost a patrician nose and a strong chin. Some of us looking at this image, however, may see a woman in a swishy skirt. She has a fur coat on, maybe. It might be fall. Some of us might see both of these images. Some of us might not see either of these images. This is the same as to what we are seeing in our schools and districts today. We may be looking at it at the use of technology through our own lens, through our own perspective, based on our own experiences. But our students, the parents of our students, our teachers, our other staff members may be seeing something very differently. And so for that reason, we created Speak Up to get beyond that, to give you data that you can use to inform your discussions and to improve decision making. So let's now jump into some of the sample data that I put together for you. I think it'll be really interesting for you. Once again, I was very judicious here and chose just a couple of different data points to share with you. To give you an example of some of the data that exists. Of course, you can look at all of the survey questions on our website. You can take a look at past reports that we have put forward so that you can see what the data looks like. But again, I wanted to give you a little bit of a sample here. This data I'm sharing with you is from last fall. Last fall, we had about 406,000 K-12 stakeholders that submitted a Speak Up survey. You can see the breakdowns here. I gave you the California data just to give you a state comparative. I don't know if many of you are here from California, but it gives you a comparative from a state perspective. Let's start off with classroom teachers and the digital classroom. One of the interesting things that we've seen over the last couple of years is that increasingly schools are providing mobile devices to their students to use in class. So you can see here the breakdown of the different types of mobile learning programs that might be in place in schools, whether that is assigning a device to students to use in school or even to take home, or whether teachers need to schedule a cart of devices to bring into their classroom. We also see that teachers are increasingly using more digital content in the classroom than they ever have been before. So this is a very popular question that we ask teachers about what types of digital content they're using. I gave you just a sampling here and disaggregated it in terms of the grade level of the students so that you can see a comparative there across grade levels. We also asked teachers about their level of comfort with many different types of new learning environments. And many of these learning environments might be ones that you're implementing in your schools and districts as well. And again, we looked at the percentage of teachers here that said they were very comfortable implementing these new learning environments. This is a really interesting question if you are in the process of implementing some of these new learning environments and want to get that sort of touch point in terms of where your students are, where your teachers are in terms of their comfort level. Again, disaggregate this in terms of the grade level of the teacher. We also asked teachers, so what do you need to use technology more effectively? Many school and district leaders tell us this is one of their favorite questions on the Speak Up survey because it gives them a snapshot of how they can help support the technology implementation in their schools and districts. And so here we see right off the top, 65% of teachers told us nationwide last fall that it's about planning time with their colleagues. 55% said it's about just-in-time technology support. And you can see another 55% said it's about that consistent, reliable internet access. These change very much or may change based on your school environment, your district, what your investments have already been, even what your state funding might be to support some of these different initiatives. And then finally, in this teacher section, we also asked teachers about their valuation about the use of technology in the classroom. And in this particular case, it's about the valuation on their professionalism, on their teacher effectiveness. And so from our data from last fall, you can see that teachers say that as a result of using technology in their classroom, they're differentiating instruction, they're better organized, they're able to create more relevant lessons, they're personalizing learning. Again, this is a really interesting question from a school or district standpoint, not just to look at what the value is of using technology on students, but actually what is the valuation from the teacher's perspective. So let me shift gears a little bit and share with you a little bit of the parent data. I quite often will tell folks that I think that this is one of the more important audiences to make sure that you're collecting good feedback from. Sometimes school leaders will tell me that they feel that they have the pulse of their parents, but that pulse may be based on the parents that have the opportunity to be room parents or be part of the booster club, or maybe come to a parent support meeting, or maybe even have an ongoing relationship with the principal or the guidance counselor or the assistant principal. And so that might be definitely valuable feedback data from those parents, but there's other parents who may not have the opportunity to have that type of a relationship. And the Speak Up survey provides an opportunity for you to get a wider perspective on your parents that are beyond those that have the opportunity to be on campus or to be involved in some of the school activities. So that, for that point, many districts really value the parent survey as it gives them that wider perspective. So a couple interesting things from the parents. The parents say they value the use of technology in school, and that is supported by several of different responses that they give us. So as you can see here, last year, 73% said they identify technology skill development as an important workplace skill for their child. 83% say that the effective use of technology or digital tools is important for their child's future. 48% say it's extremely important. Parents also like the idea of their students being able to use mobile devices to support learning. In fact, 80% say that students should be able to use mobile devices regularly. This is an important question if you are thinking about implementing a one-to-one program or bringing different types of mobile devices into your classroom, or maybe want to expand what you're doing in a different direction. To understand that perspective from the parents gives you, in many cases, that foundation for moving forward. We also, though, ask parents about their concerns about the use of technology at their child's school. And this was very interesting to us, and this has been the response for the last couple of years. What parents say their greatest concern is that tech use varies too much from teacher to teacher. What they mean by that is that my child might be in a second period science class and maybe using all kinds of virtual labs, simulations, some animations, doing blogging about their science labs. And then they go to third period, which might be an English class, for example, and the teacher says, put that laptop away or put that Chromebook away. We're not going to use that here in this classroom. Teachers are making decisions, obviously, on that at their grade level or at their subject level. But what we're finding is that parents are concerned about that for the reasons I just mentioned. They see the use of technology as an important skill for their child to develop. And so they want to make sure that the use of technology in their child's school is not just widespread, but that it is consistent and reliable, and that the students have all of those different types of experiences. We also know, though, that parents have concerns about child's technology use in general. And in fact, what we have heard over the last couple of years as the number one concern of many parents is this idea of too much screen time. So we've got this conundrum of parents value the use of technology, they value the idea of using mobile devices, but at the same time, they're concerned about their child's screen time involved with that. And so understanding where parents are on this continuum of usage is something that's very important. It's also important because we also poll about other types of concerns or dangers associated with child technology use, and you can see some of the other responses here as well. Now, parents' expectations for communications has been changing. And what I did here is I pulled some data from 2012 and compared it to the fall data that we had from last year. What we like to talk about at Project Tomorrow is that we are seeing the emergence of the new digital parent in our schools today. They are predominantly in elementary schools at this point, but they have very different expectations, not only about how technology is going to be used in their child's life, but also about the communications that they expect from their child's teacher, as well as from their school or school district. And so here we see that the preferences for parents in terms of expectations for communications tools from their child's teacher is around personal emails, text messages. 45% of parents told us last fall that they wanted to receive a text message from their child's teacher about how their child was doing in school. I'm not sure that we saw that coming in many schools over the last couple of years. In terms of getting information and alerts, personal emails are also important. Text messages are also important. And also those auto phone messages. Parents think those are very effective. What is less interesting to parents from a communications tool standpoint are some of the things that maybe your schools and districts have made large investments in. Mobile apps, Facebook accounts, even using Twitter for communications. Parents are less interested in those. That's not to say they are not using those devices in their personal lives, and we collect that data as well. It's about the idea of whether they believe that's appropriate for school communications. Let me share with you a little bit of student data, and then we're going to talk about the logistics of Speak Up before we open it up to your questions. This is a favorite question of many schools and districts. We ask students what types of mobile devices do they have personal access to, not school provided. So we've had a front row seat here, folks, in watching the explosion of mobile devices in the hands, the backpacks, the pockets of our students. We also ask students about the obstacles they face using technology at school. And it's interesting to see how that has changed over time. This is a question that lots of tech leaders like to focus in on because they're trying to make sure that technology is as available as possible for the students. And so understanding what the student perspective is in terms of those obstacles or barriers is a good way for them to check what they're making investments in. We also ask students about what types of devices they have access to at school. So in particular, are they assigned a device, a laptop, a tablet, a Chromebook that they can use in school? So this is interesting data to look at across the spectrum based on grade level, but also from a district standpoint to see how you align with other districts or other schools. So are the percentages of your students' responses comparable to those in your state, nationwide, in like schools, that type of thing? We ask students how you're using mobile devices for learning, and it basically falls into two camps: things that are directed by the teacher, or ways that students are using those school-provided mobile devices for self-directed activities to support schoolwork. So things like checking their grades, maybe emailing their teacher with questions, taking notes, or receiving reminders about tests or projects. We know that students are also interested in using their mobile devices for reading, and so this has been an interesting question, and we could start a lot of debate about this data, but we do ask students about their preferences for reading. Would they prefer to read a printed book or article, or would they prefer to read digitally on a screen? So we see here that our maybe truer digital natives are our youngest students who have a preference to read digitally as compared to their older siblings that are in high school. And there's lots of reasons that go into these choices, but I thought it was interesting to share this data with you. We also asked students, again, that valuation question about the impact of using technology within their learning. And what's interesting to us is that where most adults will say the biggest impact of technology for students is increased engagement, the students actually look at this a little bit differently. They look at it from a perspective of better outcomes, the types of skills they're learning, and how the technology provides an opportunity for their learning environment to be more personalized. And then the last little bit of data that I brought here with you today is one about where we ask students about how they want to learn about future careers. You know, with so much of our emphasis on college and career readiness and the idea of career technical education and making sure that students are well prepared for the future, it's important to take a look in what the student perspective is of the ways they want to explore careers or learn about careers. And so we've seen over the last couple of years much greater interest in things that are technology-based or things that are individualized or have a more personalized approach than things that are one-size-fits-all career exploration activities. So folks, I gave you that little bit of Speak Up data, really just a thimbleful of Speak Up data to give you a taste of the types of data that you would have access to if you participate in Speak Up. Our goal is that through your participation in Speak Up, we can help you improve your visibility into all of those different perspectives of your stakeholders. So now let me get into some of the logistics about how your schools and districts can participate in Speak Up with us this fall. Starting right off, the survey is actually open today. We opened up Speak Up today, and we have these online surveys available from October 15th to January 31st. It's a large window, very specifically set up that way so that you as a school or district leader can customize when you want to have your participants take the Speak Up surveys. We provide you with the access to the online surveys. It's a URL link where you have the opportunity to share that. We also support you with a wide range of different types of resources. We're going to talk about that. Of course, as I mentioned before, we give all of that data back to you with the idea that that data will help you make better decisions. Once again, everything that we are talking about today is 100% free. There are no hidden charges. There is no gotcha here. We are really providing this fundamentally as a service for you. So, to get started, 4 key questions that you need to ask. First question is to select your audience. We'll talk about that. Which survey format you want to use. We have some new options this year that I'm going to share with you. Pick your time frame, and I've got a little bit of insight into that I want to share with you. And then also for you to think about how you will use this data and the importance of communications around the Speak Up survey with your stakeholders. So let's jump into this with that first question about audience options. So which stakeholder groups do you want to collect data from? Which type of data will be most impactful for your plans? Again, we have surveys available for K-12 students, teachers, librarians, parents, school site administrators, district administrators, technology leaders, and community members. The surveys take somewhere between 15 to 20 minutes to complete. They are all online. They can be facilitated through a mobile device, a tablet, or a smartphone, if that's the way you want to implement it. They can be taken at school, or they could be assigned as homework. Whatever way works best for you, we have built that into the survey taking process. Now, in terms of the formats, we have several new formats for you for this year. So let me explain these carefully so you understand what your options are. We created for 2018 a new set of surveys. There are national surveys. About 60% of the questions on the national surveys are the same from year to year. About 30 to 40% are new questions. This year we're asking some new questions about social emotional learning. We're asking some new questions about school safety. We have some new questions about professional development, particularly of administrators. We also have some new questions around the ideas of using digital content. We always ask the questions around digital citizenship. We always ask questions around different types of emerging technologies. We ask students about their career interests. We ask the administrators about what wakes them up and what their challenges are. So those questions stay consistent. So you have the option to use the brand new 2018 surveys. And you can look once again at all the questions and make this decision. We also are providing for the very first time an opportunity for folks to use the 2017 or 2016 survey versions. They had some different questions on there. Again, about 60% of the questions are the same, but we had some different types of questions. We also know that sometimes districts will say to us, I just loved that 2016 survey. Can we ask those questions again? So if you have participated with us in the past and want to use those older surveys, you are fully welcome to do that. In addition to that, we have 2 new mini surveys, let me call them mini surveys, that we'll be releasing on November 1st. One is a mobile learning impact snapshot survey. It is a very short, focused survey for students and teachers. If you have implemented a one-to-one mobile learning program and you are interested in collecting some evaluative data about how your students and teachers are using those mobile devices, this survey is 100% focused in just on that topic. And then the other mini survey that we have, again, this will be released on November 1st, is about professional development. So it's a more in-depth analysis survey for teachers about what their professional development needs are, the ways they want to be engaged with professional learning, what their preferences are, what their experiences have been. It's a deeper dive into that. Again, those last 2 are mini surveys. Time period. The surveys are open today, as I said, through January 31st. Most districts, it says some, but actually most districts come up with a focused time frame. They will either have a Speak Up Day, a Speak Up Week, maybe 2 weeks. Some districts open the surveys for the whole period of time, but most put a focus around it. And that focus might be keyed into different events that you have that are happening. Now, the other thing to have as consideration is that for most people that will be participating, they'll be having their students and teachers and parents and administrators still taking the survey through January. You will get back all of your data reports in the beginning of February. However, if you complete all of your surveys and you tell us we are not doing any more Speak Up in January, so you complete your surveys before the winter break, you will get your data back in early January. So those are some considerations to think about as you're doing your plans for Speak Up. Again, as you think about your participation in Speak Up, think about how you are going to use the data. I always tell school and district leaders, I think it's important to have a plan for not just looking at the data and saying, that's interesting, but actually thinking about how to create actionable knowledge from that data so that it can inform your efforts. I also think it's valuable that as you start up the Speak Up project that you communicate to your community, whoever you are polling, as to what your plans are. So, support provided by Project Tomorrow. We can go on and on about this. I'm just going to give you a couple snapshots here. We will provide you with a general link to the Speak Up surveys, or we can create for you customized landing pages for your district. We also provide you as the administrator for Speak Up with a wide range of different types of tools that you can use, including giving you access to your participation counts so that you can always see how many surveys are coming in. We also provide you with a wide range of different types of promotional materials. Do not worry that you have to sit down and start from scratch and write an email out to your community as to about Speak Up, or how to participate, or how to craft some social media messages. We have all of that for you. We also will have lesson plans available for your teachers in case they want to incorporate the Speak Up process, the idea of listening to student voice in particular, into their lessons. So everything is here for you on our promotion page. In addition to that, I also wanted to point out the fact that we have actually just gone through this past year an exhaustive process working with our attorneys to update all of our data privacy policies. We understand how important that is, and you can feel very comfortable that we are protecting this data. Once again, this is a service that we're providing to you. We believe that the data that we are collecting for you is your data. We do not share any information out publicly about who participates in Speak Up unless you've given us permission to do that. We do not share any of your data results with anyone. This is all your data that is facilitated for your use. The data reports, as I mentioned before, we will have some preliminary data reports that are going to be available November 30th. Then if you participate in that early access and complete all your survey taking before winter break, it'll be about the beginning of January. I put January 11th in here where you'll have access to your reports. Otherwise, that'll be February 8th. And again, with the February 8th, that's when you'll get those national comparative data. And then finally, in terms of helping you with data analysis and communications, I mentioned before that we create national reports. Here's a sampling of some of our national report that we did, as well as 2 infographics. In addition to that, we'll provide you with templates. Templates to create your own presentations, your own infographics, your own reports. Lots of folks are taking advantage of that. It's just a drop-in of your data into the same formats that we're already putting in place. In addition to that, we also work with some school districts on some data analysis workshops so that you can understand where the value is in the data that you collected. So again, just before we jump into some questions, reviewing the importance and value of Speak Up is something that we hope to have been able to impress upon you today, particularly in terms of understanding those diverse perspectives of your stakeholders. There's obviously a lot more information that's on our website at tomorrow.org. You can please go ahead and take a look at all those reports and infographics that we have. As I mentioned before, the surveys are also there if you want to take a look at all of those questions. So with that, I think I'm going to pause at this point and see what questions or comments or thoughts that you might have about participating in Speak Up. And Amber, maybe you have some questions?
Yeah, and I'll let you catch your breath a second, and I'll answer one that just came in about those customized landing pages. So one of the things that the tool allows you to do this year is create your own district direct landing page. So Christina had asked about this, and if you just go into your administrator tools, you should be able to find the directions for doing that to get that page set up. It allows you to add a logo, change some text, and then get all those direct start links. But if you have any problems doing that, you can just contact us. speakup@tomorrow.org is a great email address. Someone's always checking it. So that should help you do that. So Julie, let's see. We had a couple questions about the data. So Heather had a question. My district signed up for the survey. Will I be able to access both district data and my school's data?
Yes, so the way the data is set up, and this is a fundamental thing to understand, every bit of data is tied first to a school and then to a district. We use the back end of our databases, the NCES database. So we're not making up new school IDs or anything like that. It's all coming from the Department of Education's Common Core data. So yes, if your district has signed up for participation, and the data that will be sent to the district contact is going to be district level and also school level. They can also make you, give you access to your school level data as well.
And then Heather also just had a follow-up of who actually has access to different reports of the data.
So what we do is that we have one primary district administrator who has access to the district data, the school data, all the reports, all of that. What we see is that districts then make a decision as to how they want to share that data out. Some districts are very transparent with their data, and so they will make that data available to their principals, for example, or to district administrators. Others want to do an analysis of the data and then do a synthesis of that data and then share that out. Some share it out to the community as well. That is at the discretion of your district. We don't make that decision for you, but it's whoever has signed up to participate at the district level is our primary contact, unless that contact person tells us to make that data available to someone else.
Okay. Lori had a question. Should a person take more than one survey? For example, a teacher who is also a parent and community member, should they take all 3 surveys?
So generally, the way we look at it is that someone should take the survey based on what their professional role is. So if they are the teacher, then they're going to take the teacher survey, and in that case, we're looking at them as a teacher. If they are also a parent in the community, then when they're taking the parent survey, they should be taking that survey from the perspective of being a parent. The questions are different. They definitely come from a different perspective. So I think it would be all right to take it as long as they're keeping consistent with what their role is when they're taking that survey.
All right, and Janet wanted to know if there is a designated Speak Up Day this year. We do have our date set for Speak Up America Week, and we always designate the Wednesday of that week as Speak Up America Day. So that is the week of December 10th, which would make December 12th Speak Up Day. We will be announcing some awards and prizes and things from some of our partners that week, as well as during Speak Up Appreciation Week in January. Anyone else have any other questions? I think you can probably unmute your line if you want to ask it on the phone, or you could type in a question. Otherwise, I think we're about done. I will be sharing a recording of this as well as the PowerPoint slides for this. I know we did have some questions about that, so I will we'll get those up on the website, and I'll send an email to all the participants of this call about that.
And just to underscore that, in working with many schools and districts, it's sometimes valuable to have something that you can go into your administrator or to the superintendent and say, well, here's why we would like to participate. And so there's several of these slides that you can use in that capacity, and that's why we want to make this available to you. In addition to that, if you also go to the website, there are different types of promotional materials or information materials. There's some FAQs. There's a superintendent's guide to participation in Speak Up, where you can also pull some things if you need to give a justification or a validation for participation. We also can help you with that. So please feel free to contact us if you have some additional questions or some additional needs. Otherwise, I think, Amber, this has been great. Thank you so very much, folks, for joining us today. Look forward to your participation in Speak Up. Thank you for coming.